ready to rock and roll, girls? Okay. Well, good evening, everybody. I declare the meeting open at 6:01. This regular August meeting of council. Welcome all staff present, the council's staff, all councillors present, the council staff, and the visitors in the gallery. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to advise that the meeting is digitally recorded. In accordance with the policy Gov 017, digital recording of council meetings to record the meetings of council to assist in the preparation of minutes and to allow the live streaming of council meetings. I'd also like to acknowledge country. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Tomajina people, and to pay our respects to those that have passed before us, their history and their culture. Thank you. Attendance, we have a full attendance of councillors, thanks for that. Apologies, nil, and a leave of absence previously approved, nil received. The confirmation of the minutes of our previous meeting. Would someone like to move that, please?
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam.
Second, Mr Mayor.
Seconded Councillor Bramish. At this stage, are there any corrections to the minutes prior to taking a vote to adopt them? Any questions, councillors? No, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Declarations of interest. Any councillors? An agenda item number, please, for Councillor Hyland.
Yeah, item 6.3, Mr Mayor.
Item 6.3, Councillor Hyland. Any other councillors with an agenda item? Staff.
Through you, Mr Mayor,
yeah.
9.2.
Thank you. 92. The engineer. Thanks, Daniel. We'll proceed to 4.1, announcements by the Mayor. Not much to announce really, other than in the morning Belinda King would like to talk to me regarding an item on tonight's program, on our tonight's agenda, about the Tulip Festival being spring loaded again, and she'd like to have a good talk to us about that. And that'll be an opportunity for us to publicise it. Other than that, I've been away for a while. I'm slowly catching up on things, and yeah, that's about it. Mayor's communications. A recommendation here that the council note the acting mayor and the mayor's communications. Would someone like to move?
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Councillor
Seconded, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Hyland and Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Before I put the motion or ask for any questions, I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the Deputy Mayor for the role she played in my absence over the last 4 months. She acted beyond the call of duty as far as I'm concerned, and kept me in the picture of what I needed to know and done the job, and the responses from around the community of how Mary travelled. I'd like to congratulate you for that performance. Thanks, Deputy Mayor Dunyam.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm most humbled.
Yeah, and in this Mayor's communications here, is there any councillors who wish to question in relation to the acting mayor and myself? No questions. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Notification of council workshops. There are the council workshops there, the probable upcoming ones, and the councillor attendance records. Would we have a motion on 4.4, please?
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Yeah.
4.3, reports by delegates. I do have a few reports, if they could be included, please.
Oh, yeah, okay. Nil received, I had here. Okay, Deputy Mayor Dunyam, you have a report from as a delegate?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Legate report. Attending the annual Legate conference is an opportunity for councillors and staff to network professionally and socially with councillors and staff from other local government areas. The program included the Legat General Meeting, where nearly all motions proposed with some amendments were passed. The motion proposed by Burnie City Council that Legat investigate the option of the introduction of propositions, in other words referendums, for local and state elections, and that a mechanism for this change be initiated, was the only motion defeated, 49 against and 7 for. The speakers included Dale Williams, who focused on zero waste of youth, a program to attract and retain young people into work. Dr. Verity Cleland and Dr. Kim Jose from UTAS spoke about the impact on walking within rural communities, identifying priority areas for action. Owen Tilbury's theme was Make This Region Great through community-led impact partnerships, and discussed the concept of critic to citizen, maintaining that critics are the blight on society as they do not contribute to society's health and well-being, whereas citizens actually get up and do something to make positive changes. Todd Babiak used Flinders Island as an example of positive branding outcomes achieved through collaboration with the local community to create Flinders Island local brand, The Island Away. Councillor Linda Scott, President of ALGA, provided an update on national projects including issues and recovery programs for COVID-19, and Professor David Adams focused on regional development and the current uncertainty for Tasmanian councils as a result of the PESRAC report. He clearly identified the possibility of structural changes in Tasmanian local government, and that the Tasmanian local government sector was not consulted in the formulation of the PESRAC report. Professor Adams emphasised the change within and for local government in Tasmania is inevitable. I have another report on Chris Simons. Our Wynyard Yacht Club Commodore Chris Simons has been chosen to be the only Australian competitor in the Hansa Parasailing World Championships being held on the 2nd to the 9th of October this year on the island of Sicily in Italy. Chris identified that this trip is more complex than any other he has undertaken, primarily because of the COVID-19 requirements. With the support from the High Performance Director of Australian Sailing and the President of International Hansa Class Association, Chris has been given a travel exemption to travel and compete in these World Championships. The Coins Foundation in Brisbane has provided significant financial support for Chris to attend and participate in these World Championships. Chris is highly credentialed in his sport and performances and has been placed as first and second at 7 World Championships, Australian Sailing's Parasailer of the Year for the past 2 seasons, current National Aspire Award winner across all sports, nominee to join World Sailing's Athlete Commission. As a world-class non-funded athlete, he inspires all people to achieve no matter what barriers they may have. Chris Simons is an exceptional role model, not just within our local community, but he has also been recognised by the Tasmanian Premier, Peter Gutwein MP, and our Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison for his extensive contribution to parasailing. Betty Height, OAM. Betty Height died on the 20th of July this year and was an absolute superwoman in our community. Betty's community achievements included the establishment of the Tulip Festival, the Foreshore Market, and she was president of the Burnie Village Green Fair Committee, raising thousands of dollars for Yamina Park. Betty had a passion for music by volunteering in the makeup department for the Burnie Musical Society and Wynyard Rotary Club Music Hall for many years. Betty was also instrumental in establishing a food van service in Burnie to provide meals for those in need, which was eventually taken over by City Mission. Betty believed that no obstacle was insurmountable, that you simply went around it. Betty was a staunch monarchist and received an OAM for her services to not just our community, but any community in need. I wish to move a motion that these 3 reports be included in the minutes of the August meeting 2021.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Duniam. Councillors, you heard the reports and they've been moved. Would I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Councillor Hyland seconded. Any speakers, any questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 4.4, we have the councillor workshops, the upcoming ones, and the councillor attendance records. Would someone like to move on those, please?
So move, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam.
I'll second that.
Councillor Edwards. Any questions? Any speakers? No questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Public questions and statements, which we don't have any tonight, so that one is a nil. We go to 5.1, and taken on notice from the previous meeting. 5.1, responses to the public questions and questions taken on notice from the previous meeting. They're all listed there. Public questions without notice, public statements received in writing, public statements without notice. Planning Authority items. It is now 6:12 and we move into the planning section of the council meeting, and there is a section for questions and statements in that section, and we haven't got any of those, so we continue on. So 6.3, Councillor Highland is leaving the room. Okay, 6.3, multiple dwellings, 4 units located at 17A Murchison Highway, Somerset, DA 102 2021. We have a recommendation there, councillors. Would someone like to move on that, please?
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunya moved.
I'll second that.
Councillor Edwards seconded. Any speakers to...
Yes, Mr Mayor, just briefly. Each of the representatives' issues have been addressed, including sunlight conditions, height of buildings and shadowing, and the development application meets acceptable standards and performance criteria. While privacy was identified by the representative as an issue, privacy and potential devaluing of property are not matters for council's consideration as a planning authority. Therefore, I do support this recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further speakers? No further speakers? Councillor Bramish.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm certainly not going to speak against the motion, but when you drive round, it's good to see these internal blocks starting to get filled up.
Yep.
That's all I need to say.
Thank you. No one spoke against the motion. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Would someone like to mention to Councillor Highland he can return, please? 6.4. Councillor Highland return at 6:14. Item 6.4, demolition of the dwelling, new dwelling located at 69 Irving Boulevard, Zestes Beach, DA 118 2021. There's a recommendation there, councillors.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunya moved.
I'll second that.
Councillor Edwards seconded. Any speakers?
Yes, Mr Mayor. Each of the representatives' issues have been addressed, including the rectification of siting of the new dwelling, constraining development within the boundaries of the subject site. It is noted that the proposed dwelling is similar to the established pattern of development on the northern side of Irving Boulevard, and that is 2-storey dwellings. Based on the recommendation and the report, I support this recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further speakers? Councillor Edwards, do you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'm just happy to go along with the recommendation.
Thank you. No one spoke against the motion. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 6.5, ancillary drilling, a studio at 19 Banksia Avenue, Sisters Beach, DA 126 2021. The recommendation there, councillors.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunya. Seconded, Councillor Edwards. Anyone wish to speak?
Yes, Mr Mayor. This proposal is for the conversion of an existing building, is single storey in height and will not create any further bulk, scale or extensions to the extending building, and therefore will not create any further impact to adjacent properties due to appearance, bulk or scale. This report considers that this proposed conversion is consistent with the existing streetscape of Banksia Avenue, particularly as the existing building is limited to having internal upgrades only. Therefore, I do support this recommendation.
Thank you. Any further speakers? No questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. It appears to me that that concludes our planning section at 6:16. Okay, matters raised by councillors. 7.1, responses to councillors' questions taken on notice. Here we go through those. Responses. Notices of motion. Section 8, nil. 9.1, budget amendments. I missed one, Mr. Chair. Did I really? Oh, yeah. So I did. Was in a bit of a rush. 7.3, councillors' questions without notice. Councillors. Councillor Bramish.
Thanks, Mayor. Gee, I thought I'd missed my opportunity, but anyhow.
We wouldn't miss you for nothing.
No, I know you wouldn't.
No, we'd certainly return.
I guess it's probably a question that's been asked in this chamber for a few years now, and to the best of my knowledge, we have not got a satisfactory answer. And we're going to talk about the Bass Highway between Calder Road and Doctors Rocks. Has there been any, through you, Mr. Mayor, to probably the Director of Engineering, has there been any comment regarding a works program or a timetable or something like that? Because there's been a fair bit of commentary from Doctors Rocks to Somerset and highway upgrade to Marrawar, but this piece is sort of forgetting how I see it.
Mr. Engineer, do you have anything to help for Councillor Bramish?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, despite multiple attempts for that information, not to date. No.
Thanks. Thank you.
Well, Mayor, with your permission, will you allow me to move a motion regarding this item at this stage, or what's the go?
How do we go with this, Mr. GM?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can't move a motion because it's not on the agenda. So, again, to bring an item onto the agenda, it needs to be urgent, and it needs to, I guess, have advice, and there needs to be reasons why it couldn't have been put on the agenda in the first place. So you couldn't move a motion, Councillor Bramish. You can certainly ask questions. You can continue to discuss, but you can't move a motion.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Mr.
right.
GM. So, Councillor Bramish, you could make a notice of a motion for the next regular meeting.
No, I won't do that, Mayor. I don't want to wait another month.
Okay.
I guess I get my opportunity later in the meeting. I think there might be some indications there of something I raised a couple of meetings ago, and the GM was going to check which way was the best way to go. With Councillor Fairbrother had a bit of input, so I might get the opportunity there to try and rip it into someone in the roads department of the state government, because I think we're getting left behind here with that section of road. So I'll just leave it to later in the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Bramish. Any other councillors with questions without notice? Councillor Courtney.
Mine's actually in the same vein and following the response that I've got in tonight's agenda. Through you, if I could just ask the Senior Engineering Manager, can you find out, or can you get back to me, I don't expect an answer now, on how much heavy vehicle tax we have paid as opposed to how much has been spent on our highways? Because I'm really concerned about that stretch that's got patchwork potholes, and I'd like it addressed. So if we could find out how much the state government is sitting on our heavy vehicle tax and how much they've spent here, I think we've got a better argument to go forward and say, well, why hasn't that been done?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we can certainly take that on notice. Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Engineer. For those that were listening to the radio today, and I was doing a service on a machine in the shed, and they certainly plastered Mike O'Loughlin on the condition of the road from Cooey to Circular Head, and yeah, the more than ring him with what is annoying you, and he sure got a response. Yeah, and that was the road. Anyway, any further councillors' questions without notice? Councillor Hyland.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Question to the GM through you, Mr. Mayor. Just in regard to that road, and I think this has been put across the table earlier at another meeting, the road between the Somerset Bridge and Circular Head, I believe that there is funding, there is plans for all the repairs and all the works. Is this, because all that's in place, the money's there, is that obviously the reason why they're not going to repair it twice? My understanding is that got anything to do with it? I wouldn't like to see us go jumping in when the plans are already in place, which I understand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's $40 million worth of funding earmarked for improvements, including Cam River Bridge and so forth, in the leg from, I guess, Somerset to Doctors Rocks, or Cooey to Doctors Rocks, is $40 million worth of works, and then there's $100 million worth of upgrades from Wynyard to Marrawar. So there is a short gap, if you like, in the middle that Councillor Bramich alerts to that isn't covered under those funding arrangements that I'm aware of. But look, I don't think there is a relationship between the two. I think that the issues around the state of the highway seem to be, I'd say, a northwest or statewide issue at the moment. There's certainly considerable complaints around Sassafras, Parramatta Creek type area. Through Latrobe, there's significant concerns there, and you will have seen in the media our frustrations, I guess, are shared right across the coast. So I don't believe it to be related. To the best of my knowledge, they're not waiting for those works to proceed. I think it's clearly some other issues around their processes of maintenance. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr. GM. Any further councillors' questions without notice?
You let me have another one, Mayor.
Sure can.
Thank you. I guess, Mr. GM, would it be fair to say the first upgrade from Wynyard to Smithton will be at Bowles Road up the Flounder Hill? Would that be what plans I've seen? And then Gates Road?
Certainly, through you, Mr. Mayor, all of the jobs, for want of a better phrase, have been identified and earmarked for that work between Wynyard and Marrawar, and it's just a matter of then prioritising those works as to what will be done. So the first three are obviously complete or underway, and then we'll be advised as to what the next three are. So I'm looking to the right to see if that is indeed the next one, but they've certainly all been itemised, Councillor Bramich. We know that the Boat Harbour Primary School was the first job. The Rocky Cape Hall, or Sisters Creek, Rocky Cape Hall was the second, and then we had one in the Circular Head municipality, which was the third, and now they're moving towards the next round of projects, which are...
Yep. As per the DSG website, in package 1 for, I guess, projects in the Waratah Wynyard municipality, the Gates Road junction area, which I believe includes improvements to the overtaking lanes, Myala Road realignment on the corner from the eastern approach, I believe, and junction improvements, and the other projects are Circular Head based, so they appear to be the two in the first round. Yep.
Thanks, Mr. Engineer. Okay, any further councillors? Yeah, Councillor Courtney.
Through you again. Similar to trying to find out how much heavy vehicle tax the state government is sitting on, could you also find out for me, and I don't know if this is you, Mr. GM, how much of our dividends are being sat on by TasWater and when we are likely to see them? Because I have concerns about the PESRAC report pushing for amalgamation by stealth through these boundary readjustments, and that at the moment the state government's sitting on money for heavy vehicle tax for our municipality and appears to be sitting on money for our water, for our municipality, and I'd like to know that that's going to be sorted out before these boundary adjustments occur and our communities miss out on that funding altogether.
Over to you, Mr. GM.
I'm not sure we wanted to respond to that tonight, but in terms of the TasWater dividends, we expect that in this financial year our dividends will return to be paid in full. That's our expectation. The amount of dividends that we haven't received in recent years, my understanding, will be paid to councils, but spread over the next 5 years. So we'll receive the full amount of the dividends owed, but rather than receive them in one payment. It will be spread over a 5-year period.
And can we get an amount on that? Because if the boundary adjustments happen before the next election, then no money won't be coming back to our municipality. It'll be coming back to the readjusted municipality. So I'd like to know if that's promised over 5 years and there's a boundary adjustment potentially within 2, what happens to our community's money?
Yeah, we can provide you with that dollar figure if you like.
Thanks, Mr. Thank you. Councillor Fairbrother.
Question without notice. I don't know whether General Manager might be able to provide a brief synopsis on the presentation from the Minister from Local Government, Mr. Roger Yench, in regards to the proposed PESRAC recommendations. He did on the Saturday night just give a general overview. It may benefit other councillors that weren't there, just to have a brief verbal summary of his presentation. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I guess in summary, the Minister talked to the reform process, and essentially the first steps in that reform process are to seek bipartisan support, so to seek support from the Labor and Green parties around a terms of reference for the reform project. At this point in time, I understand that discussions are ongoing and remain ongoing. There are, some conditions that are continuing to work through, but if that, the indications, as I understand it, are that if that bipartisan support is not forthcoming, the local government reform task, if you like, won't proceed any further. So that's the first step in the process. Following that, should that then be achieved, we will receive, a terms of reference and some, an outline of what the process will be from here. But certainly at this point in time, we're none the wiser around what that process might be. We're none the wiser around any objectives or any sought outcomes. We were certainly reassured very strongly from the Minister that the local government sector will be consulted in detail, and we'll certainly have an opportunity to have some input into the process. But as to when that is and how that may occur is certainly yet to be determined.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Well covered. Okay. Drawing to a close on questions without notice, I guess. Anything further? We'll move on then. Notices of motion nil. We then move on to 9.1, budget amendments for the projects carried forward 21-22. And there's a recommendation there, councillors, which we've workshopped. We have a moved Councillor Courtney. Seconded Councillor Fairbrother. Are there any further questions to what we had explained at our workshop?
No, but I'll support the motion in saying that thank you for the presentation of the report in the attachments. It was clear to read and easily understood, so thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Fairbrother. Deputy Mayor Duniam, did you wish to speak to the motion?
I'm not going to speak against it, but I'm like Councillor Fairbrother. I believe that the adjustments should be endorsed to reflect our council's actual projects for the year. And again, the report provided very clear details of the estimated capital expenditure for the year, and that the proposed changes relate in particular to timing of projects that are ongoing and require unspent funds to be carried forward. It is also recommended that Council note the final annual plan progress report for 2020-2021 and the 13 annual plan actions carried over for completion. So I do support this recommendation also.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Courtney, did you wish to speak? You moved the motion. Okay. No further speakers. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.2, road closure, Wilkinson Street. Recommendation there, councillors. Councillor Courtney moved.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam seconded. Would any the mover or seconder wish to speak before I ask the rest of the councillors?
I was obviously one of the councillors that didn't agree with the closure. I voted against the closure. However, a magistrate has now ruled, and I think this is now beyond council. That's the order that we've got, and that's what we've got to do.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. Councillor Bramish.
Sorry, Mick. Yeah, I guess it'd be fair to say that I've probably got to stop arguing now. The umpire's made the decision and I've got to accept it.
Okay. Councillor Fairbrother had his light on, or did he want to speak?
Yeah, I do, Mayor. I'm just trying to turn up what page we on?
We're probably on page 72.
Thank you. I'd like to raise an amendment if I could, please. And that is the inclusion at the end of the second point 2, at the end of the sentence. I move an amendment that the recommendation will read, liaise with the Department of State Growth to resolve the closure of the southwestern end of Wilkinson Street at the Bass Highway intersection, as well as the condition of the Bass Highway between Calder Road and, was it Doctors Rocks? And Doctors Rocks.
You need a seconder?
I'm just wondering, and probably say the wrong thing, has this got anything to do with the item we're dealing with? I don't believe so. So I fail to, I reject accepting the amendment. Okay? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder for 9.2, the road closure Wilkinson Street. Would anyone more wish to speak? Any more speakers? No more speakers? Councillor Edwards.
I just wanted to say I went with the recommendation with what the state government put to us, but yeah, I'm really disappointed that the road's going to be closed. So yeah, it'll be a very sad day when it does shut down that road.
Okay, we've got the motion, and I think we've had all the speakers we wish to have, wish to speak. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.3, the Tulip Festival. The recommendation that we endorse a spring-loaded program of activities and events occurring over a 4-week period to coincide with the blooming of the tulips and public opening of the tulip farm.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Move, Deputy Mayor Dunyam.
Second that.
Councillor Edwards seconded.
If I may speak, please, Mr Mayor.
Your turn,
The
Deputy
impact
Mayor.
of COVID-19 in 2020 resulted in this council facilitating the very successful spring-loaded program and activities and events. Community feedback about this program was very, very positive. It is evident that there remains uncertainty around COVID-19 restrictions, and it is important that this council demonstrates responsibility, particularly in the context of the health and safety of all residents at all times. The recommendation that council endorse a similar spring-loaded month-long program again in 2021 for our community to celebrate the blooming of the tulips and public opening of the tulip farm is considered to be the best way forward given the present circumstances.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Any further speakers? I'll put Councillor Edwards.
I was just going to say I'm not happy to go along with the recommendations, but I have to, so for the safety of our community, and I just know that there was going to be a lot of work to go into it for the Tulip Festival to go ahead. So yes, again, we're going to have spring loaded and it's going to be wonderful for the community again.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've all spoken. We're satisfied, ready to put the motion. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Bin Laden is about it. Here we go. 9.5, Archers Road renaming. No? Oh, yeah. That's all right. That's all right. I need a bit of help, Mr. GM, every now and then. Here we go. Oh, I get a bit anxious, aren't I? 9.4, yep. The Waratah 150-year celebrations. There's a recommendation that the council note the intention of the Waratah community to hold a celebration to mark the 150th anniversary of the discovery of tin at Mount Bishop in Waratah and provide an appropriate level of support to assist in coordination of the event.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Councillor Hyland, seconded. Okay, would anyone wish to speak?
Yes, please, Mr Mayor. This is an exciting celebration for Waratah, where Waratah community members and other stakeholders will be hosting a series of events over the weekend of 4th to 5th December 2021. This event is to celebrate the discovery of tin at Waratah in 1871 by James Philosopher Smith, thus creating the Waratah Township and the development of the world's richest tin mine. This discovery at the time also saved Tasmania from being absorbed into the state of Victoria. The recommendation is to note the intention of the celebration and for Council to provide an appropriate level of support to assist in coordination of the event, and I support this recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother.
Thank you, Mayor. My question is, what is that appropriate level of support is the question. I recognise that the item, thank you for council staff for preparing it, does suggest that we put something at Waratah recognising the contribution to James Philosopher Smith's to the community and to the state, as pointed out by the mover of the motion. I guess that's what I'm asking myself. What is that appropriate level of support? I ask the question as if anyone's got an interest in the AFL, you go over to the home of AFL, which I guess is, if you're from Victoria or Tasmania, is perhaps the MCG. They have a number of personnel that have been associated with the game of Australian rules football, immortalised by bronze statues outside the ground. I asked myself whether something like one of those statues, I know we don't go putting statues around Tasmania in the year 2021, but my thinking is such that James Philosopher Smith is deserving of something much more than a little plaque or a big plaque identifying his contribution to the state of Tasmania. And I think that we perhaps need to think a little bit bigger for something, recognising the 150 years. Recognise 150 years has passed and we haven't done anything like this. So why would we now, after 150 years, go and build something retrospectively to his memory? I say that my response to that is because his contribution to Tasmania can't be understated. If I just turn your minds back to the 1850s, Wynyard was proclaimed in 1861, and at the time we had a drain on people from Tasmania going to the gold mines or the gold rush in Victoria. So everybody was going out. The people at the time didn't have a market to sell their resources to till between, say, 1950 and 1970, till the mines come, this particular mine, and the flow of people back into the state happened, and the economic stimulus that was generated by this mine can't, as I say, be understated. Launceston was built on the back of the resource that come from tin, and Waratah being the world's richest mine. If you go and have a look at some of the buildings in Launceston, they are Gothic and Victorian era, which go back to that time, and they are stately. And much of the wealth from Launceston recognises the Launceston coat of arms, recognises
Councillor Fairbrother, you had a question. I just wonder when that question's going to come.
Oh, well, my question was, sorry, I thought I was speaking in support of and
no, well, you asked a question and I didn't think we was going to get a history lesson. I want the question.
So I haven't spoken yet?
No, you asked a question. And what was the question? Because I was going to direct it to our Manager of Community Activation.
Okay, well, my question was, or is, sorry for being so long-winded, I thought I was speaking to the motion, but my question was, if you missed it, what is the appropriate level of support?
I thought that was it. Thank you. Mrs. Bradley, would you...
Mr Mayor, so we've been providing support to the community, and there's a number of people in the Waratah community that have events that they want to put on during that time. We've held a planning session just a couple of Saturdays ago and met with those people, helping them with logistically how to put on different events and activities. Certainly we recognise that recognising James Philosopher Smith is really important, and have been working towards trying to secure some funding. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen in time for the 150-year celebration. We will have a plaque, like a brass plaque that we're going to have made to recognise that, that'll be there at the time of the 150-year celebration, and we'll continue to pursue a more notable tribute to James Philosopher Smith.
Thank you, Mrs. Bradley. Any further questions or speakers to the motion?
Can I ask another question?
Certainly can.
How do we as council arrive at a more appropriate, I think it was the term referred, how do we arrive at something else other than what's proposed in here, is my question.
Mrs. Bradley, do you have anything further to in relation to a question of that nature?
So through you, Mr Mayor, so I don't quite understand your question, sorry.
I guess where I was alluding to is that we go above and beyond what's proposed in the report to recognise James Philosopher Smith. I guess my question is, how do we as recognise that the time frame between now and the celebrations is too short for something? My question is, how do we, as a council, how do we have a discussion, or council and community, how do we have a discussion about, well, okay, we're going to do this as an interim, is the suggestion of a bust or a statue something that we could at least have a discussion about to see whether there is an appetite for something other than what's proposed in here.
Smith to talk about something that is appropriate. So there's certainly been, I'd say, a considerable amount of work and advocacy and discussions with the community around creating something that is fitting of the impact that James Philosopher Smith had on not just the Waratah community, but the Tasmanian and mentioned the whole of Australia.
Thank you, Mrs. Bradley.
Through you, Mr Mayor, if I can add to that, perhaps, Councillor Fairbrother, should you wish, we can bring to a workshop the details that we have so far in relation to the events that are proposed for the 150 celebrations, the initial concept of the interpretive signage, and I guess that is proposed around Philosopher Smith, and then explore further opportunities from there, should that satisfy your query.
Thanks, Mr. GM. Okay, any questions further? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. That was 9.4. 9.5, Archers Road renaming. The council note the information provided relating to the renaming. Yeah, there we go. We've got a recommendation there, councillors.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam moved and Councillor Hyland seconded. Thanks, folks. Any discussion?
I don't wish to speak to this motion, Mr Mayor.
No. Okay. Any further speakers? Councillor Hyland, did you wish to speak?
No, I think we give it a nice old bashing at the workshop, and I think we're on the right track there to resolve the issue, Mr Mayor.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Fairbrother, did you wish to speak? Okay. We'll put the motion. All in favour? Oh, sorry. I didn't see that, Councillor.
Sorry, Mayor. I was probably a little bit late.
Thanks. I miss them on that side sometimes. Councillor Brownridge, go for it.
Just a bit disappointed that this road naming is causing a drama again that should never have happened. What's the officers' thoughts on getting it changed back to Archers Road? Do they believe that's possible? Is there any information regarding that?
Who could answer that one?
Mr Mayor, I'll try and speak loudly as well. Place Names Tasmania will ultimately provide approval of whether or not Archers Road can be reinstated. So we'll certainly explore all options and speak with Place Names Tasmania to try and achieve that outcome. Place Names Tasmania's position to date is that by naming the road Archers Road, as it's locally known as, is that it's not in accordance with the guidelines, and therefore they may reject that request for reinstatement on that basis. So we do have additional information provided by some residents that we could put forward on behalf of council, and we'll certainly argue as hard as we can to achieve the outcome that council would prefer, but ultimately it will be the decision of Place Names Tasmania.
Thanks, Mrs. Searle. Councillor Fairbrother.
Question, if I might, Mayor.
Okay.
My question is, has the name Ramsgills Road been gazetted yet?
Mrs. Searle.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe it has, yes.
Thank you. Okay. Any further speakers? Any further questions?
Yeah, Mayor, I'll speak against it. Whilst has been claimed that the decision to name the road is Ramsgills Road has been made in accordance with the guidelines. It's like, is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? Because the guidelines, as I understand it, talk about community consultation, and in this instance the community have clearly articulated their views, or for the local residents anyway that found out about it by reading the agenda, and I guess they voted by signing a petition and articulating quite clearly that they're not happy with the name change, because Ramsgills Road, Ramsgills, there's no ownership from the local community for the name Ramsgills. Archers, as we're all well aware, has a historic connection to the road. I believe that we need to go back, as we done with Foster's Road, and listen to the community to find out what they want. And I think that in doing that, I think what we're doing is saying council is consistent in that we want to listen, and not only listen but act on what our community wants, because that's what we did with Foster's Road, was that we changed it about. This instance, the guidelines haven't been followed. We haven't consulted with the community, so I did send around an email today that it did talk about, under the 2020 nomenclature thing, it did talk about dual naming, and it does provide for that. It's not desirable, no it's not, but we only have one Archers Road at Aldina in this municipality. The other one I don't believe is going to be confusing, and I would like to reject the recommendation and put something stronger so that we send a clear message that it's a decision of the council that we would like to strongly recommend to the nomenclature board that it should be Archers Road despite what has occurred. And yes, we might get a little bit of egg on our face, but I think that we need to do it as strongly and as affirmatively as possible, and I don't think it's covered by, with respect, the current recommendation. So I won't be supporting the recommendation, and I foreshadow a different recommendation to affirmatively put forward the name Archers Road to the nomenclature board or whoever it is, because my reading of it is that we as council have jurisdiction to name roads where it is consistent with the guidelines. I recognise that perhaps between councillors and staff we might agree to disagree on whether it is consistent with the guidelines or whether it's not.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Mr. GM, do you wish to add anything to those comments?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, only perhaps comment that my reading of the recommendation as it is before council and the motion before council is that it states that council officers explore opportunities available to reinstate the name of the road to Archers Road through Place Names Tasmania. That's pretty clear to me what the intent of the council is, and I'm not sure a foreshadowed motion or a changing of that would ultimately change the intent of what's already before council.
Thank you, Mr. GM.
I will further add that I guess it's two further points. It's important that in relation to the commentary around consultation, there's a clear distinction between the difference between this particular renaming and the Forsters Road, in that the Forsters Road, or Foster's Road, had, I guess, numerous property and property owners and people that live on that particular street that clearly have implications and as a name change, whereas in this case it's a very different setting, very different environment, so the consultation requirements, I guess, are ultimately different. And I should also point out that certainly the Register and through Place Names Tasmania can refuse, I guess, a name submitted on the grounds that it doesn't comply with the guidelines, or that the name is an approved name for another place. And essentially that is the reason that on this particular occasion the naming of Archers Road was rejected, on the basis that it was already approved elsewhere within the region. So I think just a couple of important points to consider.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Okay.
Just a question.
Your question, Councillor Highland.
Whatever word we need, the underlying issue that put us on the back foot, if you like, is the fact that it wasn't a gazetted road to start with.
Mm-hmm.
So that sort of puts us on the back foot a bit, because it's got to go through the whole process, and it wasn't our position to go, in the first instance, to go out to the community. It was done because they were doing their job.
Yep.
So we just need to be mindful of that.
Yep. Okay. Any further, Councillor Fairbrother?
Ask another question.
Okay.
Can we also add, if this motion is approved, that we point out to the Place Names Tasmania that 2.6 of the guidelines talks about consultation and advertising of proposals. It says, while appropriate consultation is expected to be undertaken by the proponent prior to submitting a proposal to approve, alter or discontinue a place name, it is necessary to ensure that the whole community has the opportunity to consider and respond to a proposal before being approved. That hasn't happened in accordance with the guidelines. That says on page 11 of the guidelines what is accepted practice within the guidelines for consultation and advertising proposals. I contend that that hasn't occurred and needs to occur. Thank you.
So what was your question, Councillor Fairbrother?
Can that be added to the submission if the recommendation is approved? Point out that 2.6, was it? I just closed it off.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, that can be added, and I think will assist in our argument for an alteration. So we'll add the additional historical information that we've now become aware of, as well as
To support it.
the fact that we've had community members come forward that don't support the decision that's been made.
Thanks, Mrs Searle. Deputy Mayor Dunyam.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you, Mr Mayor, to Councillor Fairbrother, the whole community. Can you please explain what you mean by the whole community?
Yeah, I might. If I refer you through to the guidelines, perhaps well, I read it from the guidelines. I didn't write the guidelines. I just read what's in the guidelines. So perhaps within the guidelines, if I can turn it up and have a look in the appendix to see if there's a definition for your benefit, but you're probably best to do it yourself when you get home.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Again, through you, Mr Mayor, I'm asking the question about what is the whole community. In other words, is it that one resident that lives on the road, or the people around the whole area, or is it the whole of the local government area that we now reside in? I just want some clarification about what is the whole community, because it does bring us to a situation of interpretation, and that's something that the government department will undertake very thoroughly, and they'll interpret it their way.
If I can respond to that, perhaps while we're having some dialogue with the Place Names Tasmania, we can ask them the question that's been put by the Deputy Mayor about what their intention is for when they refer to the whole community.
Okay, we'll move on. We have a mover and a seconder. Councillor
Have you
Bramage.
got me down for speaking to the motion or just asking the question, Mayor?
No, you've not even asked a question, Councillor Bramage.
I think I'll have a crack now, though.
Okay, question is.
Well, I'm going to speak to the motion.
Oh, you're going to speak to the motion. You've got a question.
And some probably questions as we go.
Okay.
The comment was made earlier that Archers Road doesn't fit the criteria within the region. I'm pretty sure something like them signed words. Well, I'd like to beg to differ on that. I think the next Archers Road's at Wilmot, if my memory serves me correctly. I think Councillor Fairbrother brought that up in his iPad other night. Well, I know we've given this a fair old flogging round, but also would like to raise the issue about with Place Names Tasmania is that we've got a Goldie Street in Wynyard, we've got a Goldie Street in Smithton, we've got a Port Road at Boat Harbour, a Port Road at Wynyard, we've got all them sort of things. They don't cause a drama, so I think that it's a bit of a cop-out on using that statement where it doesn't fit the guidelines. And the road, just to touch on what was talked about before, what the community is. Well, I guess there's a couple of farms down that road, as well as the house on the corner. I guess that's the community that been there for 100 years and lived there. And if I'm down the street, someone asks me where Rileys live up there, I could say 2 kilometres past Archers Road. Or if they ask me where Rileys live up there, I could say 2 kilometres past Ramsgills Road. Where the Ramsgills Road? That's the sort of history that we're going to be losing. Like, everyone knows that. And I think it's unfair that this place named Tasmania takes that off the community as well as us. Now, a question now, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Place names Tasmania, I guess that's a division of the state government somewhere. Would that be correct? Excuse my ignorance.
Spot on, Councillor Bremish. Yes.
Right, well, this is probably another thing, another dot point. Did I hear some dot points talked about earlier tonight? Another dot point we should have when we should have some representatives from the state government to come along here so we can express our concerns too.
Good.
Thank you. I'll stop.
Thanks, Councillor Bremish. Any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother, do you want to go again?
No, I just thought I'd probably best further to the question that was asked from the other side of the table if I point the
I don't think the question was asked to you. I think it was asked to the management, wasn't it? I'll go for it then.
Oh, well, I was just going to refer to 2.2 within the guidelines. Articulates clearly what the requirements are for consultation. It's on page 9 of the guidelines. Spells it out for you.
Thank you. Okay, I think we've built this around enough. We have a mover, Deputy Mayor Dunyam, and a seconder, Councillor Hyland. Do either of you want to close the debate? Oh.
Very briefly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It has generated a lot of debate, and I think that it does come back to interpretation. Councillor Bramich is quite correct about the duplication of names. We also have our Esplanade in Somerset and Esplanade in Wynyard. So even though the names have been changed to Somerset Esplanade, where I live. So I think that there are some issues around it, but it does come back to the community consultation. My question is, what is community? And I have actually read the whole document that you are talking about, Councillor Fairbrother, and provided Councillor Bradley with that information when she was supporting the Foster's Road renaming. So I'm quite au fait with that. But I do recommend that we follow this recommendation as per what has been put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dunyam. The debate is closed. I put the motion. Those in favour, please indicate by showing your hand. Those against? Councillor Fairbrother against. The balance for the motion is carried. As I look back through the earlier part of the agenda, I failed to recognise 9.2 that the Manager Engineering Services, Mr Summers, indicated he had an interest in. I guess the girls, you recorded that Mr Summers left the room for that decision. Oh, didn't he? Oh, doesn't he? No. Oh, I get you. Sorry about that. Made another blue. No, but I may have. I just thought that I had my back turned that way and that he possibly left the room, but he possibly didn't. Just indicated where he stood on the matter. Thank you. 9.6. Here we go. The award of contract 763 for Cardigan Street Sports lighting upgrade. This is the soccer ground, folks. So moved. Councillor Courtney.
I'll second that, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Okay. Any speakers? Councillor Courtney.
I'm obviously happy to award the contract to AJR. We've used them before. Obviously, Daniel knows that they do good work and we get good value for money there, so I'm happy to support that. I just like to say that obviously this has been hard for us to get it done because of COVID, and I certainly hope that the extension for the funding is upheld. I hope with all my heart we don't have any problem there, because obviously that's completely outside of our control what's happened there. And I'm really, really happy about this happening because, as you all know, my daughter was a soccer player that had to play on that field quite regularly, and I think that the lighting and the drainage is a really, really important thing to get fixed up there. So, yeah, I'm happy to award the contract.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Any further speakers?
Yeah, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Hyland.
Yeah, they're just a group of quiet achievers up on the hill there, and they've been working away there and ending up with some good years behind them with the committees they've had over the years, and it's long overdue, the lights, and all that sort of thing, to get these young kids all playing soccer up there, and I'm sure they'll appreciate what's happening.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Highland. Any further speakers? There's been no one speak against the motion. I will put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.7 would be the awarding of the contract to the pavement stabilisation and resurfacing.
So move, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam. Councillor Fairbrother, seconded. Any wish to speak to
Just
move
a
it?
little bit, thanks. The project will undertake in situ pavement stabilisation that reuses road pavement materials using binding additives such as cement and or lime to strengthen and stabilise the pavement materials. Considering the issues raised statewide about road services, I am sure that this project will generate some interest to determine whether the road's useful life has been extended or not. So I do support this recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further speakers?
Got a question, if I may, Mayor, if
Yeah.
that's all right.
Yeah. Councillor Bremish.
Will there be provisions in the tender for like a warranty for council, that sort of thing?
Well, as the Manager of Engineering Services.
Yep, through you, Mr Mayor, there's certainly quality hull check
Director of
points. All pavements are designed based upon intended traffic. This one will also include laboratory testing of the additive, the percentage to add, before that goes ahead, so we get that quality step. Yep.
Thank you, Mr Summers. Councillor Bremish.
Yeah, appreciate that, but does the base get tested as well?
Through you, Mr Mayor, absolutely. As per any normal pavement project, compaction testing and the like is paramount before we accept the works, plus a 12-month defects liability period post completion of the works as well. So, yeah.
Thank you, beauty.
Thank you. Any further speakers? There was no one spoke against. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, 9.8, the award of the contract for the public toilet upgrades.
So move, Mayor.
Councillor Fairbrother.
Yeah, I'll second that, Mayor.
Councillor Bremish, seconded. Any discussion?
Only to say that it is pleasing to see that it's coming to fruition. I think I moved a motion along these lines back in March 2020. Was it 2021? One of the two. But word has come about with our consultation with our community that they are dissatisfied with the standard of our toilets. So the completion of the project, hopefully we can change community sentiment about the standard of our public toilets.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother.
Yes, Mr Mayor, just a very quick comment. Council is also aware of the vandalism of our public toilets and the need to upgrade to mitigate this behaviour where possible. There are several public toilets throughout our municipality listed for upgrade on page 98, so I think that very clearly we know just exactly where these toilets are, and I think it's a great recommendation, as Councillor Fairbrother said. This needs to happen so that we meet our community needs, and I support the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Bremish, you had your light on. I wondered if you wanted to say something.
Yeah, look, I'll second the motion. I'm going to support it.
Yep.
I'd just like to ask a question regarding the hose reels, what we've dropped off in what we talked about other night. How would that compare with cleaning? Over a period of time, would we be better to spend that extra money having the hose reels in there rather than pay that contractor that bit extra? I guess, Daniel, you understand what I mean, probably? Thank you.
Mr Summers, do you have any comment on regard that?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Look, the current contract we're engaged in doesn't rely upon the hose reels. Look, I could provide some analysis of that post this report, if need be, if council deemed it something they wish to raise again, we could negotiate a variation to an awarded contract to include again, if that would help. So.
Well, I think I was thinking that long term it might have been cheaper to spend that bit extra money now to get the cleaning costs down. That's where I was coming from there. I'm happy to go along with whatever you decide.
Okay. No worries. Any further speakers? Councillor Courtney.
Just real quick, I'm happy to support the tender because I think it's great that we're doing something about the cleanliness and the odour in particular, so the increased ventilation, fantastic. But I still want to see whether we get toilet seats, because I'd really like to have toilet seats in our toilets, because it feels a little bit like a jail toilet without the toilet seat. That's all.
Okay. I guess...
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Look,
Yeah.
Putting seats on the toilets, as described, is actually in the current budget, and I think there would have been a mention of that in the previous carry forward report to complete that. So, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Summers. Okay, we'll give it a fair old bash about. Councillor Fairbrother, do you wish to close the debate? Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. I'm checking me numbers now. You pulled me in. We're up with it now. 9.9, Martin Street and Raglan Street reseal upgrade cycling. They award the tender there for crumb rubber. I reckon this is pretty good.
Yes, so moved, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan moved. Seconded Councillor Courtney. Any speakers?
Yep, thanks, Mr. Mayor. This report covers the environmental implications of using recycled crumb rubber in road pavements and emphasises the significant environmental advantage that meets the objectives of Waratah Wynyard Council's ISEP plan and the Waste and Resource Recovery Plan. The benefits of using crumb rubber modified binders are listed on page 103. Again, considering the issues raised statewide about road services, I am sure that this project will generate some interest to determine whether the life of these roads has been extended or not, and I do support the recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. (9.10) Integrated Council Environmental Plan.
So moved.
Councillor Courtney moved. Councillor Fairbrother seconded. Any speakers? You wish to speak, Councillor Courtney?
I do. As obviously all the other councillors and yourself would be aware, this was one of the things that I hoped to achieve coming on council, that we had an environmental plan, and I'm pretty stoked that we're now doing our first report against it. That shows us as a fairly progressive council. I'd also like to note, given the recent report that's come out, that's pretty much damning Australia on how we deal with climate change, I think it's really progressive of local councils to take the lead where state and federal are failing to do so. And I think this is commendable for this council to step up and try and make ourselves neutral well before we're being dictated to by state and federal to do so. So I think this is really commendable, and I think it's great that we've come back and we've shown everything that we're doing to try and meet what we've laid out for ourselves. It's commendable, and thank you to the staff for doing it.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Any further speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.11 Waste and Resource Recovery Strategy, the annual update.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan moved. Councillor Courtney seconded. Any speakers? You wish to speak, Deputy Mayor Dunyan?
Not really, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.12, the Tourism Plan Review. That Council note the final review, 21/2/11 to 2020 Tourism Plan.
Yes, so moved.
Councillor Fairbrother moved. Councillor Courtney seconded. Any speakers? Councillor Fairbrother, do you wish to speak?
Yeah,
No?
I do.
You do?
Yeah, I do. Whilst we at the moment, I believe, doing tourism fairly well with our visitor information centre, I still think there's an opportunity for us to do a lot better from where I sit. And I know that through the Historical Society, they've identified that perhaps we could do some things differently in this space, to share some of the stories that we have. I know the state government in the tourism space do story stops. I don't know whether it's something that we can do in this municipality. We've got so many things, a geo trail, we've got signage that we're currently working on. Somewhere or other we just probably need to bring everything together, and I say that the 2021 to 2027 is the opportunity for us to do things. We're doing it great, but we have so much opportunity to do it a little bit better. And if it needs be that there's a working party formed, perhaps, from interested stakeholders, I think it'd probably perhaps be a good idea to get some quick runs on the board in this space, just as a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Any further speakers before I put the motion? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.13, the Senior Management Report. There was a recommendation that we note the monthly Senior Management Report.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Councillor Courtney, seconded. Okay. Any questions regarding the Senior Management Report?
No questions, Mr Mayor. Just a very brief comment. I'm pleased to note that the community conversations are continuing within our municipality. I think that they have been a very successful engagement of our community. So I do support this recommendation.
Thank you. Any further speakers or questions? You note the Ballard Avenue progress there. Councillor Hyland.
I did ask it over a meal, but I just asked about the gum trees we've found.
Yeah.
Didn't know where it was.
The eucalyptus broccarania.
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you know much about them, Mr Mayor, or not?
No, I've got a book on eucalyptus at home, and there's about 700 varieties in Australia, and this particular one I don't think is all that scarce, and I just wondered at of this putting a spanner in the works at the moment when there's plenty of others in the vicinity. Never mind, we'll get through it. Yep. Any further questions? I put the motion. No further questions regarding the Senior Management Report. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 9.14, the financial report for the period ended the 31st of July. Councillor Hyland moved.
I'll second that, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam seconded. It's all in front of us there, councillors. You happy? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay, that brings us to the matters proposed for consideration in the closed meeting. Did I really? Oh, gee. I could see that. Well, I'm lucky I got you with me, Mr. G. 9.15, minutes of other bodies and committees, and 15.1 is the audit panel committee held on the 29th of June, and the annual report and the annual work plan.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam moved. Councillor Edwards. Okie dokie. Any questions? Any speakers?
I have a comment, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
I attended this meeting and was very impressed by the calibre of reporting for this audit panel meeting as provided by our financial staff. This was also commented on by the audit panel, which I think recommends that we do a very good job. So I do think that we need to acknowledge the work done by our financial department. I do support this recommendation.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Any further speakers? Okay, I'll Councillor Fairbrother.
Just a question. There was I haven't got it in front of me, just going from memory. There was 11 recommendations, 8 of which have been completed. Was it from the Tasmanian Audit Office, made some recommendations? I was just curious to know what the outstanding ones recommendations were. If I don't know, is that something that we could either be a link or something later on that we could have a read about?
Either that, or would you have a brief report on that, Mrs. Searle, or you'd sooner?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have detail of all the outstanding items. I know one of them was in relation to the accounting for our gravel pit rehabilitation, which I believe will be resolved as a part of this year's audit. But I can certainly provide council with a copy of the Tasmanian Audit Office report that outlines the issues and those that have been resolved and yet to be resolved. So I'm happy to provide that out of session to councillors.
Thanks, Mrs. Searle. Mr. GM.
I was just going to comment that it's important to note that a lot of those recommendations aren't recommendations that have been identified necessarily in any audits for this year. Many of those are historical and have been on the books for 5 to 10 years.
Thanks, Mr. GM. Okay, Councillor Fairbrother.
Yeah, I speak in support of the recommendation. The report itself articulates that the audit panel has essentially saved us some money, paid for themselves and more, was what I took out of it. They did identify within the report that a sum of money where they have found savings through whether it be operational or that they have identified things that have happened that have resulted in them earning their keep. So I do endorse the recommendation, saying that they do as the mover of the motion suggested, that good work.
Thank you, Councillor Fairbrother. Any further speakers or questions before I put the motion? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. That concludes the open section. Now 10.0 matters proposed for consideration in the closed meeting, that absolute majority that the matters listed below be considered in the closed meeting. Can we have a motion on that,
So
please?
move, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunn. Councillor Hyland seconded. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. And that the closure of the meeting to the public at about 7:22.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Councillor Courtney. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Okay.